Every afternoon, people lined up in front of Madame Vero's small restaurant like it was a festival ground. Men, women, students, drivers, and travelers stood under the hot sun, holding plates and buckets, waiting patiently. Some people came as early as 10 a.m. just to secure their spots. Her food was so sweet that people said it could make a sad person smile. Her soup was thick, her rice was rich, and her stew smelled like heaven. People even washed their plates by themselves just to eat her food faster. Travelers from far towns stopped in the area just to taste Madame Vero's cooking. People called her the Queen of Cooking, and she enjoyed the praise with a calm smile. Madame Vero was a middle-aged woman with dark skin and a slightly plump body. She always wore colorful Ankara wrappers and blouses, and her long braided hair rested on her back. She moved slowly but confidently, stirring pots and smiling at customers. "My food is made with love," she always told people. Chinedu believed her more than anyone. He was a young man in his mid-20s, dark-skinned, average build, with low-cut hair. He usually wore polo shirts and jeans. He loved her food so much that he saved money just to eat from her restaurant every day. To him, Madame Vero was not just a cook, she was a blessing. One morning, Chinedu decided to come very early. He wanted to be the first customer of the day. The town was still quiet and the sky was still dark when he reached the restaurant. He noticed the door was half open and light was coming from inside. He smiled and thought, Madame Vero is a very hard-working woman. He walked closer and quietly peeped through the door. Inside, Madame Vero was already in the kitchen, wearing her usual Ankara wrapper. She poured water into her biggest pot and placed it on the fire. As the water began to heat, Chinedu saw something inside the pot moving. His heart started beating fast. Inside the pot was a very big python. The snake was alive, thick and coiling around the pot, moving slowly in the hot water. The fire was strong, but the python did not die. Madame Vero bent down and whispered strange words into the pot, like prayers mixed with chants. She added pepper, onions, crayfish, and spices, while talking softly to the snake. "Make them love my food. Make them come every day. Make them forget every other cook," she whispered. Chinedu's body started shaking. He could not believe what he was seeing. He stepped back slowly, covering his mouth so he would not scream. Suddenly, Madame Vero turned and saw him through the door crack. Their eyes met. Her face changed. She rushed to the door and pulled him inside. "Chinedu, please," she cried, tears falling from her eyes. "Do not tell anyone. This charm is what makes my food special. A strong native doctor prepared it for me. If people know, my life is finished." Chinedu looked at the pot again and felt fear deep in his chest. He thought of all the times he had eaten her food, all the people that trusted her, and the danger of the charm. His mind was confused and his heart was heavy. He did not know whether to keep quiet or tell the whole town. Chinedu could not sleep that night. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying the image of the big python in Madame Vero's pot. He remembered how the snake moved freely in the hot water, how Madame Vero whispered strange words, and how she begged him with tears. The smell of her soup, which he once loved, now made him feel sick. He thought of the long queues in front of her restaurant, the children who came with their mothers, the travelers who praised her food on social media, and the men who said her cooking was better than their wives. What if all of them were under a charm? He wondered. His chest felt tight, and he turned from one side of the bed to the other, unable to find peace. The next morning, Chinedu went to work as usual, but he was not himself. His friends noticed his silence. "Guy, what is wrong with you?" his friend Sola asked during lunch break. "You look like someone that saw a ghost." Chinedu forced a weak smile. "Nothing, I'm just tired," he replied. But inside, he wanted to shout. He wanted to tell someone, but fear held his tongue. What if Madame Vero cursed him? What if the charm affected him for exposing her? He remembered her eyes filled with tears and her trembling voice. "Please, don't expose me," she had said.
He felt pity for her, but he also felt anger. Why should people be forced to love her food? Why should they eat charm without knowing, he thought. That evening, he decided to go back to the restaurant, not to eat, but to watch. He stood across the road, pretending to check his phone. As usual, the place was full. People laughed, chatted, and praised Madame Vero. "This woman's food is magic," a man said. "Once you eat it, you cannot stop," another woman added. Chinedu watched Madame Vero move around, smiling, serving customers, her colorful Ankara wrapper bright under the afternoon sun. She looked normal, friendly, and harmless. No one would believe she had a living python in her pot every morning. He felt his heart sink. If I tell them, will they believe me? Or would they call me a liar? He wondered. Later that night, Chinedu visited his uncle, Paobi, an elderly man known in the town for his wisdom. Paobi was tall, dark-skinned, with a white beard, and always wore simple native clothes. Chinedu greeted him and sat down quietly. "Uncle, I need advice," he said. Paobi looked at him carefully. "Advice about what?" he asked. Chinedu hesitated, then told him everything he saw. He described the python, the chanting, and Madame Vero's confession. Paobi's eyes widened. "This is serious," he said slowly. "Charms are real. Some people use them to control others. If this is true, you must speak out. Silence can destroy many people." Chinedu shook his head. "But she begged me. She will be finished if I tell. And what if her charm fights me?" Paobi sighed. "Truth is more important than fear. If you keep quiet, you become part of the evil." Chinedu walked home with heavy steps. His mind was full of confusion. He imagined Madame Vero being arrested, her restaurant closed, her life destroyed. He also imagined people continuing to eat her food, unaware of the charm controlling their desires. He stood under the street light and looked up at the dark sky. "God, what should I do?" he whispered. His phone buzzed suddenly. It was a message from an unknown number. "Please meet me tomorrow morning before sunrise. I know you saw everything." His heart skipped. He knew it was Madame Vero. Fear crawled into his bones. What did she want to say? Was she planning to beg him again, or was she planning something worse? He looked around, but the street was empty. The message stayed on his screen like a warning. That night, Chinedu made a decision. He clenched his fists and whispered to himself, "I cannot keep this secret. People deserve to know the truth." But fear still followed him like a shadow. He remembered Paobi's words, "Silence can destroy many people." He looked at his phone again, staring at Madame Vero's message. Tomorrow, before sunrise, he would meet her. He did not know what she would say or do. He did not know if he would report her after that meeting. His heart beat fast as he imagined her eyes, her tears, and the python in the pot. The secret was no longer just hers. It was now his burden too. Before sunrise, Chinedu stood in front of Madame Vero's restaurant again. The street was quiet and the air was cold. He wore a simple polo shirt and jeans, his dark skin shining under the street light. His heart was beating fast as he waited. Soon, Madame Vera arrived. She wore her colorful Ankara wrapper and a small shawl around her shoulders. Her long braided hair was tied back, and her face looked tired and worried. She opened the door and saw Chinedu standing there. "You came," she said softly. "Yes," Chinedu replied. "You asked me to come." She looked around to make sure no one was watching and led him inside. Inside the kitchen, the big pot was already on the stove, and the python was inside again, moving slowly in the water. Chinedu felt cold all over his body. Madame Vero sighed deeply and sat on a small stool. "Chinedu, you have a good heart," she said. "That is why I am begging you. I did not start like this. When I opened this restaurant, nobody came. People laughed at my cooking. I was poor and I had debts. Then a native doctor told me about this charm. He said people would love my food. I was desperate, so I agreed." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I never wanted to harm anyone. I only wanted to survive." Chinedu listened quietly, but his heart was still heavy. "But you are controlling people," he said. They are eating your food because of charm, not because they truly love it. That is not right. Madame Vero shook her head. I stopped using the charm many times, but when I stopped, people stopped coming. I would lose everything. I am not wicked, Chinedu. I just wanted to live. She stood up and held his hands. Please, I will remove the charm. I will stop everything. Just give me time. Do not tell anyone. Her hands were warm, but Chinedu pulled away gently. He looked at the python again and felt fear. After leaving the restaurant, Chinedu walked straight to Paobi's house. He told him about the meeting. Paobi listened quietly and nodded. Her story is sad, but it does not change the truth, he said. A charm that controls people is dangerous. If something happens to that snake, or if the charm turns bad, many people can be affected. You must report this. Chinedu felt a heavy weight on his chest. He knew Paobi was right. He thought of children eating the food, pregnant women, and travelers who knew nothing about the charm. He finally nodded. I will report her, he said slowly. That afternoon, Chinedu went to the local police station. He spoke to the officers in black uniforms and told them everything he saw. At first, they laughed. A python in a pot, one officer said. Are you sure you are not dreaming? But when Chinedu described Madame Vero's chants and confession, they became serious. We will investigate, the senior officer said. They followed him to the restaurant, quietly, so no one would suspect anything. Chinedu's heart beat fast as they walked. He felt like he was betraying someone, but he also felt he was doing the right thing. When they arrived, the restaurant was full again. People were eating, laughing, and praising Madame Lero. The officers walked into the kitchen. Madame Vero was stirring the big pot, her colorful Ankara wrapper bright under the light. When she saw the officers, her face turned pale. What is the problem, officers? She asked calmly. The senior officer opened the pot. Everyone in the kitchen gasped. The big python was inside again, moving slowly in the water. One officer shouted, "This is real!" Another stepped back in fear. They turned off the fire and pulled the pot aside. Madame Vero dropped the spoon and started crying. Customers rushed into the kitchen, screaming and shouting. Some vomited. Others shouted, "We have been eating this?" Chaos filled the restaurant. Madame Vero fell on her knees and held the officer's legs. "Please, I did not mean to harm anyone. It was just a charm." But the officers handcuffed her and led her outside. People gathered around, shouting and pointing. Some cursed her, others cried. Chinedu stood at the back, watching everything. His heart was heavy, but he knew he could not turn back time. As the van drove away, she looked at him. Her eyes were full of tears and anger. Chinedu felt a chill run down his spine. He wondered if she would ever forgive him. He also wondered if this was the end of her secrets. But as the van drove away, a strange man in a dark robe watched from the corner, smiling quietly, and Chinedu felt that Madame Vero's secret was only the beginning.
The day Madame Vero was arrested, the whole town shook like someone had beaten a giant drum. News spread faster than fire in dry grass. People rushed to the restaurant to see the pot, the kitchen, and the place where they had eaten for years. Some people cried loudly, some shouted in anger, others sat on the ground, shaking their heads in disbelief. Mothers held their children tightly, whispering prayers. Men argued in small groups, blaming themselves for trusting Madame Vero too much. The once loved restaurant became a place of fear. People avoided it like a haunted house. Chinedu stayed indoors for 2 days. He did not go to work and he did not answer calls. He felt guilty and relieved at the same time. He remembered Madame Vero's tears and her trembling hands. He remembered her smile when she served food. He also remembered the python in the pot, moving like it was part of the soup. At night, he had nightmares. He saw the snake chasing him, wrapping around his legs, whispering Madame Vero's words into his ears. One evening, his friend Sola came to his house.
You did the right thing, Sola said, sitting on the small couch. People are talking. They said you saved the town. Chinedu shook his head. I don't feel like a hero, he replied. I feel like I destroyed someone's life. Sola sighed. Sometimes the truth hurts, but lies can destroy many lives. In the market, elders gathered under the big mango tree to talk about what happened. Paobi was there wearing his simple native clothes, his white beard shining in the sunlight. This is a warning to all of us, he said loudly. Not every sweet food is good food. Not every smiling person has a good heart. We must pray and be spiritually alert. People nodded and murmured in agreement. Some women confessed that they always felt strange after eating Madame Vero's food, like they were drawn to it by force. A man once tried to stop eating there, but he could not resist. Hearing these stories made people even more afraid. They wondered how many other hidden charms existed in the town. Meanwhile, Madame Vero sat alone in a small cell at the police station. She wore the same colorful Ankara wrapper, but they now looked dull and dirty. Her long braided hair was scattered, and her eyes were red from crying. She refused to eat. She kept staring at the wall, thinking about her past. She remembered the day she met the native doctor, the desperation in her heart, and the excitement when people started lining up for her food. I only wanted to survive, she whispered to herself. But now she had lost everything. No customers, no restaurant, no respect. She wondered if anyone would ever forgive her. Sometimes she thought of Chinedu and felt anger. Sometimes she felt shame. One night, something strange happened. The police station was quiet. Most officers were asleep. Madame Vero sat on her mat staring at the small window. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. A shadow stopped in front of her cell. She looked up and saw a man wearing a dark robe. His face was half hidden, but his eyes were sharp and glowing. You should not have trusted them, he said in a low voice. Madame Vero's heart jumped. Who are you? She asked. The man smiled slowly. I am the one who gave you the charm. Her body shook. The native doctor, she whispered. He nodded. They think it is over, but it is not. The charm is still alive. The python was only a part of it. He leaned closer to the bars. If you want revenge, if you want your power back, I can help you. Madame Vero's hands trembled as she listened. Outside, the wind howled and the light flickered. And in that dark cell, Madame Vero began to smile again, while Chinedu slept peacefully, unaware that something bigger was about to happen. Madame Vero sat quietly in her cell after the strange visit from the dark-robed native doctor. His words echoed in her mind again and again. The charm is still alive. I can help you get your power back. She remembered the long queues, the praises, the respect, and the money. She remembered how people bowed when they saw her, and how travelers took pictures of her food. But she also remembered the fear in people's eyes when the python was discovered. She felt a battle inside her heart. One part of her wanted revenge, another part of her wanted peace. She lay on her mat, staring at the ceiling, and whispered, I am tired of darkness. I don't want more trouble. The next morning, she requested to see Paobi and Chinedu. When Chinedu and Paobi arrived at the police station, Madame Vero looked different. She still wore her colorful Ankara wrapper, but her long braided hair was neatly tied, and her eyes looked calm. Chinedu, she said softly, I was angry at you. I wanted to curse you. The native doctor came last night and offered me power again, but I refused. Chinedu was shocked. You refused? He asked. She nodded. I have lost everything, but I don't want to destroy more lives. That charm was evil. It controlled people. It controlled me too. Paobi nodded slowly. You have chosen the right path, he said. Madame Vero sighed. I will tell the officers everything. I will expose the native doctor and remove every charm I know. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of regret, not fear. The officers listened as Madame Vero explained how the charm worked and how the native doctor controlled many people in different towns. They started an investigation, and soon the dark-robed man was arrested in another town. People praised Madame Vero for telling the truth, but they still did not trust her completely. Her restaurant remained closed, and she was asked to attend counseling and community service. She began to cook again, but this time in a community center, teaching young women how to cook with honesty and skill. Good food must come from clean hands and a clean heart, she always told them. Slowly, people started forgiving her, but the town never forgot what happened. Chinedu also changed. He stopped eating carelessly in every restaurant. He prayed before eating and encouraged his friends to be careful. Not every sweet thing is good, he told Sola one day. We must be wise. He became known in the town as the young man who exposed the secret. Some people called him a hero. Some said he was too harsh. But deep in his heart, he knew he had done the right thing. He often visited Paobi, who reminded him, truth may hurt, but lies destroy. The town itself changed forever. People became more careful about what they ate and who they trusted. Elders organized meetings to teach children about honesty and the dangers of charms. Churches and mosques were filled with people praying for protection. Traders promised not to use juju to attract customers. Slowly, trust returned, but wisdom stayed. When travelers came and asked about Madame Vero's restaurant, people told them the story. Her food was sweet, but it came from a dark secret, they said. Not every sweet thing is good. Do not use evil to gain success, and do not trust blindly. True success comes from honesty, hard work, and a clean heart. When you see evil, speak out, because silence can destroy many lives.